Negative calorie foods. Perhaps you heard of this concept, the notion that if you eat a certain food, the amount of calories you use to actually process this food is more than the actual food contains. Now, is this truth or is this just myth? This is what I'm going to answer today in this video and answer once and for all, do negative calorie foods exist or is it just nutrition quackery? Let's get into it. We all know food contains calories, and calories are broken down into proteins, carbs, and fats. And each one of these macronutrients has its own energy composition and own energy densities. We know this is fact. However, there has been foods now that have been labeled as calorie negative, okay? They get labeled as defying the physiology that we know from the other foods. Supposedly, these foods take more energy to process, digest, and use up than there actually is calories in this food that you're eating. In other words, canceling out the calories that you're consuming from these foods. Theoretically, this would mean you could lose weight by eating these foods because they will actually contribute to your energy expenditure. But is this true or is this just bullshit? Well, drum roll please. No, it's not true, okay? It's bullshit, okay? Don't believe it. There's a lot of this push towards this being a weight loss solution. It just doesn't work that way, and I will explain that now, but let's just rest assured that no, negative calorie foods do not exist. Now, these foods that are kind of mentioned as, negative calorie foods, they're usually typically your fruits and vegetables. So we're talking your apples, your celery. Celery is a big one. Watermelon, lettuce, carrots, all those kind of foods, they're considered negative calorie foods because there's a belief that the amount of energy your body uses to actually use up these foods and process them and all that kind of stuff, digest them, is more than the actual calories you consume from these foods. Now, yes, these foods are very low calorie and they can actually form a good part of your weight loss plan simply from the fact that they're very filling and they're very nutritious, but they're not still in nature negative, negative calories foods, okay? They just doesn't exist. There's no concept that would kind of support this claim. But they're still very nutritious, so please eat them in abundance, but don't believe that eating these will effectively be a weight loss magic solution, okay? It just does not work that way. Now, when you look at the energy balance kind of equation, there's energy in and there's energy out, energy expenditure. And as part of energy expenditure, there is a thing called thermic effective food, where your body does process different amounts of calories to process different kinds of foods. Okay, that is a fact. Okay, that is something that exists. Different foods will have a different thermic effect, hence will have an influence on your energy expenditure. So thermic effective food, it's essentially the amount of calories you use up to process, digest, and use up the food that you're eating. To break them down further based on macronutrient, fats, about 0 to 5% of your calories from fats will be used up to digest the foods and process it. About 5 to 10% for carbohydrates and about 20 to 30% for protein. So it's easy to see that protein is quite a thermic food compared to the others in terms of a macronutrient. So foods high in protein are going to tend to be more thermic. Hence your body's going to use up more energy to process it. Okay, that we know of. But even then, when you think about it, it's 20 to 30% of the calories is still not negative calorie foods. And that's not even to mention the fact that the foods that are proposed as being negative calorie foods are not even high in protein, okay? They're vegetables and fruits. They're moderate in carbs relatively or very low in carbs, high in fiber. So things like that you got to consider when looking at this stuff, that it just does not make sense to label these foods as negative calorie foods, or even just to say that negative calorie foods as a concept even exists. So no, you cannot eat yourself into a negative calorie balance. It just does not work that way. Even with protein, as I mentioned, 20 to 30% is used up for that stuff, to process it and digest it. So even if you're eating heaps of protein, it could have a slight advantage in terms of energy expenditure if versus you were having a low protein diet. But even then, it's not going to create basically an energy deficit from just eating the food alone. It just doesn't work that way, okay? If the weight loss was that simple, it would be a lot more easier for a lot more people. At the end of the day, it's the total nutrition, the total calorie balance that matters. And tweaking your diet and dialing it down in such a way to create an energy deficit. That's what matters, okay? It doesn't matter if you eat negative calorie foods, high protein foods. At the end of the day, it comes down to creating an energy deficit. In fact, if you want to learn more about like the energy balance, I do have a previous video that you can check out. I'll put a link in the description below where I talk about the basics of energy balance, and I talk about a bit about thermic effect of food if you want more clarification around this. But at the end of the day, there is no such thing as negative calorie foods, okay? Thermic effect does exist, but it's not that great of a factor that's going to kind of influence your overall nutrition and kind of negate any other kind of factors when it comes to actual fat loss, okay? This doesn't work that way. Negative calorie foods will not put you in a negative calorie balance. It's not going to be a magic weight loss solution. It'll just be something you just got to consider, and especially not when it comes to the foods typically proposed as negative calorie foods, because they're not even high in protein. They're very nutritious. Now, please eat them, okay? They've got a bunch of fiber and all this different goodness to them, but they're not negative calorie foods. The concept of negative calorie foods is, if anything, a marketing ploy, but more so misinformation that's been pushed out there. It's just bullshit. Don't believe it. So yeah, hope that makes sense. So there we go. I hope I've answered that clearly, okay? The negative calorie foods do not exist, okay? At best, these foods are very good to be low calorie options in your diet to fill you up, to kind of keep you from eating too much overall in the day. They can be very helpful in that regard, but they're not going to actually use up more energy than you're actually consuming. You know, that's just the way it is. And sorry if that's not what you wanted to hear, if you're hoping I'd be like, yeah, negative calorie foods exist. Eat a bunch of carrots and you'll lose all this weight. Unfortunately, the truth just doesn't work that way. Okay, I wish I could say that, make it easier. But yeah, the truth is, just doesn't work that way. As always, if you have any questions, please leave a comment below or reach me through Instagram via the link in the description below. And of course, hope you've gained value from this video. Hope you've learned something new. As always, if you have, like and subscribe, please, and check out my other videos. I've got a whole bunch of other nutrition videos on this channel to help you out and help you reach your peak. And please share it with your family and friends. Stay out of trouble, stay classy. See you next time. Bye.